Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Preston. You are tuned in to Hear These Thoughts YouTube channel. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you guys. Now, if you guys are new to this channel, hit that subscribe button if you like what you hear here, and the bell next to it to get an update every time I upload a video. Now, what I do now is every Monday, I pick an artist and I rank their albums from worst to best. And this week, I decided to pick J. Cole. And if you guys have any suggestions as far as what artist I should do next, let me know in the comment section. I will make my way until that artist. Now, there are some couple things that I do want to say about this before I get started. For one, I just want to tell you guys a secret. This is just my opinion. This ranking is my opinion. It's not Bible. But once again, if you guys disagree with what I have to say, hit the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. And on top of that, on this list, I will not be doing EPs or mixtapes in this album listing. It's just strictly for albums. But the good thing is, I will take those EPs and I will take those mixtapes and I will make another video ranking those. So be on the lookout for that. You have to subscribe so you guys can watch it. I know I say subscribe a lot, but I want you guys to be involved in these conversations because I love talking to you guys. Now, without further ado, let's get into the ranking for J. Cole's album. Now, starting off with number 5 as far as albums from worst to best when it comes to J. Cole is none other than Jcoles For Your Eyes Only. Now, I will start off by saying this. The album was not bad. It's not a terrible album at all, but I rank it at number 5 because out of all his albums, this is the album I go back to and listen to the very least. One of the things I will say about this is that coming off of 2014 Forest Hill Drive, which we will talk about later, even though that album is lively, it had a lot of things going on there. I feel like this album fell off of that and became really dull. Now, I will say that the lyrics here are very dope. I understand the concept behind the album, that it was dedicated to someone he knew that passed away, and I really appreciate that part of this album. But as far as trying to defend J. Cole as an artist who isn't boring, this album is the worst thing to use as an example to fight against those people who are making those claims about J. Cole. So it felt really dull, it felt really mute. Sonically it did, but I will say there are some good things that I did like about this album. Sonically, a lot of people were surprised by it. I wasn't surprised because it sounds like actually the EPs Truly Yours 1 and 2, the album. That's what it sounded like. If you go back and listen to those sonically, some of the subject matter, it sounds like that's placed in here. But there are some tracks in here that I like. I like For When the Bell Tolls because J. Cole is really good at making these intros. That's one of my favorite J. Cole intros. I like Immortal. I do like Neighbors. I like Folding Clothes to a degree. It's okay. Ville Mentality is okay as well. But I really love For Your Eyes Only because J. Cole is really good at making these title tracks for these albums and make you feel what he's talking about in the song, and there's very few artists who do so. Overall, the album is cohesive. I felt like it was kind of short, but the album that I named after this has kind of the complete opposite issues. But overall, I rank this album here. The only time I go back and listen to any songs in this album is if I go back and listen to Immortal. And the fact that Deja Vu came out after Bryson Tiller's Exchange, I'm not saying who took who from who because I really don't know, but using the same sample and the same beat as Bryson Tiller's Exchange, it made Deja Vu feel like a mixtape song. It just did. And for that to feel like that in an album that only has 10 songs, I don't think you have too much room to do something like that. But no, well, once again, at number 5, I have J. Cole's For Your Eyes Only. Alright, coming up at number 4 in J. Cole's discography, I have his debut album, Cold World, The Sideline Story. Now, this thing has a complete opposite issue than For Your Eyes Only. For Your Eyes Only was short, but it was really good and very cohesive. I feel like this album is very long, and it wasn't focused. It was scattered. Stuff was everywhere. You can tell that J. Cole was trying to look for a single. In my personal opinion, I was a J. Cole fan for a long time, and I couldn't wait for this album to drop. And when it did, it felt like he had a bunch of songs that was made for different demographics, and he was scared to let any of them go because he didn't want to miss out on anybody. He probably wanted to have the biggest sales on the first week as possible, which I can understand that. And he did say something like that in certain interviews about Born Sinner and about this album, and I definitely understand that. But it was to the detriment of this album. It could have been consolidated down to 12 tracks, maybe even 13. And another thing that disappointed me about this album is that we got 3 tracks that we've heard before thousands of times, which was In the Morning featuring Drake, Lost Ones, and Lights Please, which I do like those tracks. But when it comes to a brand new album, I would wish that you would come out with an album with brand new tracks. And I get that around that time, as far as music goes, a lot of people advertise their singles on a mixtape and then put those songs on the album. I just wish J. Cole didn't go that route. Now, I will go into saying the good things about this album. There's a lot of great singles here. Nobody's Perfect is a classic record, regardless of anybody wants to acknowledge that or not. Nobody Perfect is a dope record. Probably one of my favorite Missy collaborations from any artist for the most part. And I'm not gonna, go into the whole Timberland thing. I know what you guys are gonna say, but you guys get what I'm trying to say. Nobody's Perfect is a dope track. Can't Get Enough is a dope single. Workout, I wasn't really feeling like that. Cold World is okay song. The Sideline Story is a dope track. But there are some records on here that I didn't like a lot. It felt like that, like I said, he tried to force to cater to a certain demographic, like Mr. Nice Watch. I listen to trap music, I listen to EDM, so that's not the issue here. The issue with that song is that it just didn't work. I get he was trying to go after a certain demographic, but it didn't work here. And to make matters worse on this track, he got washed bad by his own boss. And it's Jay-Z, I get it. A lot of people get washed by Jay-Z. But if it's just you and Jay-Z on your album and you get washed that bad, it's like, it looked really, really bad, man. And you had 2 chances. He had 2 verses on this song, and both verses was nowhere near what Jay-Z did on that track. So it was kind of, embarrassing. But like I said, over time, the tone of the album is very confusing. The focus of the album was probably not even there. It's non-existent. But my favorite tracks on this album is Rise and Shine, which I do love the intro on this album because it sampled Kingdom Hearts and I get the story that was told there. But I felt like Rise and Shine should have been the intro, or at least the track after the intro. That's probably my favorite track on this album. I do like Can't Get Enough. I do like Nobody's Perfect. Like I said, I do love that song a lot. But there, are tracks on there that was just kind of weird, like God's Plan. The beat sounded, even back then, it kind of sounded dated, or just sounded really kind of lazy. The sample on there is cool, but the beat just kind of sounded lazy. But overall, pretty decent, first album. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Even when I go back and listen to it, it's not what I thought it would be. But I actually listened to this album more than I listened to For Your Eyes Only, so that's probably the only reason why I have it ranked higher. And as far as hit records, it has way better ones, where For Your Eyes Only has non-existent hit records. So that's number 4, Cold World, Sideline Story. I love Cole, y'all. I'm not a hater. All right, ranked at number 3 for Jcoles discography of records from worst to best. We're gonna go with his sophomore album, Born Sinner. Now, if you guys didn't know, I'm a big album cover head. I love album art. I love it. And on this album, the deluxe edition and the standard edition has dope album covers. I love the symbolism. I love the colors. I love the contrast between the 2 album covers. I think it's really, really dope. Now, when I first heard this album when it came out, I didn't like it that much. And I know it sounds like I'm saying a lot of things bad about J. Cole, but I just want to get the negative stuff out the way so we can get into the positive stuff. One reason being is that I heard Miss America. And I know that was a single, but I thought that's the route that they were going to go with this album. So maybe it was my high expectations that put me in that place. But I was like, okay, we're going to get the rapping J. Cole. Like the rap J. Cole. Like the Rise and Shine, the Simba J. Cole. That's what Miss America sounded like. And then when I heard the album in the beginning in Voluminati, J. Cole pretty much said that it's darker this time. So I was like, okay, well, J. Cole is going to try the sophomore dark album like Lupe Fiasco did with The Cool. And the weird thing about J. Cole is that he's a really nice guy. So for him to try to attempt to be this dark person, it felt like it wasn't genuine. It felt like it was forced. And the funny thing about it is that nothing on this album really felt like it was anything that dark. And on top of that, the stuff in Miss America sounded more darker than anything that was on this album. So in that point, I was kind of disappointed by that. And like there's certain tracks in there like Trouble or Land of the Snakes. It sounded like really regular stuff. It didn't sound really dark at all. But there are a lot more tracks on here that I like more than I care about whether the album is dark enough or we get evil J. Cole or not. Chaining Day is a dope track. I really like Power Trip. That's really one of my, as far as like hit records, like that's one of my favorite J. Cole hit records. Like pretty much for a while. Other than that, Land of the Snakes, I like Trouble. She Knows is a dope record. I really like the fact that he tried something a little different, but unlike Mr. Nice Watch, I feel like this track really worked really well for him. More Money is a dope track. Forbidden Fruit is one of my favorite tracks on this album, even though we got the fake out thinking that Kendrick Lamar was going to actually have a verse on here. He ended up just being on the hook. But even without him, it's still a dope track to me. We got Born Center with James Fauntleroy, which, like I said before, J. Cole is really good at making these title tracks when it comes to this album. I don't know what it is about the actual title track. I don't know if he spent more time to make sure that track on the album it works, or it just seems like the final track on the whatever album he comes out with, he makes sure that track is put together really well, and he didn't, stop doing that as far as that track goes. And Let Nas Down was a dope record. It was really cool for someone to acknowledge that he felt like he disappointed one of his favorite rappers, even though Elliott Wilson kind of spoiled that a little bit by naming it I Disappointed Nas and let people know about it. That wasn't cool, but they had their thing or whatever. But overall, conceptually, I think it was a dope album. I think, if you take away the idea, Illuminati is a dope record too. There's some things he's saying that can't work in 2018. I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get J. Cole in trouble, but it's a dope record as far as rapping. But if you take away the idea that this record is supposed to be dark, or conceptually it's supposed to be like an evil record, like the evil J. Cole record, if you take away from that, it's a pretty good album. It's a pretty good album. There's a lot less that's wrong with it than it is, some things that are right about this album, and this is why I haven't ranked that high. And back then I didn't like it, but over time this is probably the only growing J. Cole album in my personal opinion, because as I played it more and more, I started to like it more and more. And one thing I will say is one track I will say, and this is the last negative about this album, is Crooked Smile. Crooked Smile, it just felt really cheesy. It felt really, I don't want to say it's corny, it just felt really cheesy, and with the album being quote unquote dark, it just felt like it was out of place. As a single, it's cool. As a part of this album, I don't know where it fits and why it makes any sense to even be there at all, but it is what it is. It's there. What can we do? I can edit it in Spotify or in Google Play Music or in iTunes, whatever. But at number 3, I have J. Cole's sophomore album, Born Center. Alright, y'all, and number 2 for J. Cole's discography from worst to best, I have the album he just released called K.O.D. Now, once again, I am an album cover head. I love album covers. The album cover on here was very artistic, very symbolic. The concept behind it was really dope. The concept behind the acronym K.O.D. was really dope. But the thing is, a lot of rappers can have a dope album cover. Sometimes they don't come with dope albums. But fortunately, in this situation, it actually came with a dope album. One of my favorite songs on here is actually ATM, which I don't understand why a lot of people don't like it. And there's a lot of people who say that J. Cole shouldn't produce for himself, and ATM doesn't sound like a song that J. Cole would produce for himself. It sounds like something way different, and the video itself kind of reminds me of some type of Busta Rhymes video from back in the day. But outside of the video, it's a really dope song about greed and money and stuff like that. And the thing about this whole album, before I go into more tracks, is that it felt like a period piece, because it's kind of attacking or talking about addictions and things that people are going through nowadays. And after the album came out, with him speaking about drug addictions and different things like that, months later you start to see more and more rappers die from drug overdose. You see more and more rappers going to rehab for drug overdose and things like that. And I know drug overdose isn't a new thing, but it kind of is, quote unquote, I don't want to call it a trend, but it's something that happens a lot in hip-hop nowadays. And I'm glad that J. Cole came out with this album. It doesn't make this album better because of that, it makes this album a lot more important because of that. And I'm glad that he tackled that, especially dropping it on 420. I think that was really dope. Another track that I do like on here is Window Pane. That's like a deep record that like hits you with, in the heart if you know anybody going through those things. Or The Cutoff is another one of those records, and Brackets is one of those records as well, which is like one of the reasons why a lot of J. Cole fans like J. Cole, is because he knows how to hit his listeners in the heart, or talk about things that a lot of people can relate to without seeming corny, or without coming off like he's forcing it. Motivate is a dope record. I work out to that record. I like Motivate. I did say ATM. K.O.D, the title track, this is one of the only album where I feel like it wasn't the best record on the album, or at least one of the top 3 records on the album. K.O.D is a cool song, but I don't think it's the best record. But once again, J. Cole comes out another record where the final track is like one of the best records on the album. I believe it's 1985. I can't remember the title of it, but that's when he goes in that little pump and not really dissing them, but kind of teaching them that if you keep following these trends, your career's not gonna last that long. You're gonna end up on Love and Hip Hop and all these different things like that. But Kevin's Heart is funny too, and that's another song that makes this album feel like a period piece because he's talking about something that's going on right now at the time. So when you go back and listen to this album like years later, and I'm praying that this whole epidemic of rappers dying from overdose of drugs, we go back and listen to it and we be like, wow, this is something that a lot of people were going through back at that time. But once again, this is a really dope album. It's very, very cohesive. It's a nice amount of tracks, 12, and it has a great album art. At number 2, I have Jcole's album, K.O.D. Alright, so my final album, if you guys know his discography, you already know what album I'm going to name for his number 1 album. And for most people, this should not be no surprise as to this being his best album in his discography. At number 1, I have Jcole's 2014 Forest Hills Drive. Now, some people feel like that this album is a classic. If not, then they feel like it's a near classic for Jcole. People who are not Jcole fans, they have their own opinions. It is what it is. But I think this album is dope because, for one, everything that Cold World Sideline Story tried to do, as far as grabbing a different types of tracks to appeal to different audiences and put it into one album, I feel like it failed a little bit at. But I felt like this album, 2014 Forest Hills Drive, has done that tremendously. Like, one of the things I will say is that, like, the first couple tracks, if you listen to the intro, January 28, Wet Dreams, 03 Adolescence, that sounds like songs for those hardcore J. Cole fans who've been listening to him since the warm up, since the come up, since Friday Night Lights. It sounds like tracks that could be on those albums. It would not make it feel weird at all. And then you go on to tracks that that's still J. Cole but appeal to other people, like Tale of Two Cities or Fire Squad or GOMD, or you look at No Role Models. Those are like radio-ish records that don't feel like do not fit in this album. It almost feels like it's not forced. It's like, I'm gonna rap on these beats. Hopefully these make the radio, but if it doesn't, I'm not gonna sacrifice the palette of this album or the cohesiveness of this album to make a track that I'm trying to force on a radio record, like I feel like Crooked Smile was, or like I feel like Workout was. It feel like that it just matched very well in this album. And then you got tracks where he kind of step out on a limb and try to do something a little different, like Sancho Pay or Apparently, which are really good tracks in my personal opinion. Sancho Pay is just okay, but I really do like Apparently. That is a great record, even though J. Cole singing is it's kind of funny and trying to dance in the video, but I feel like that that could be something that attracts people who've never listened to J. Cole, and I think that's what it does, which I was kind of upset that For Your Eyes Only came out that way, because if he would continue with what he did on 2014 Forest Hill Drive and took it a whole nother level, I think he would get attract a lot more people who aren't J. Cole fans. But his fan base is so big, I mean, does he really care at this point? And then one track that I really like a lot on this album is Love Yours. As a fan of J. Cole, a lot of people who are fans of his love him a lot or like him a lot because of the fact that he makes these tracks that are very relatable, that are very uplifting, that don't feel forced, like, again, Crooked Smile. This track actually was a very subtle way of inspiring people to kind of have self-love and to realize and be appreciative of the things that they have instead of worrying about what the person next to them have. And I think this track does that very well. And once again, J. Cole touches the hearts of the people who listen. And if you listen to this track and you don't get inspired just a little bit, or change the way you think about life or your own life a little bit, then, I don't know, maybe you're heartless. Who knows? But once again, at number 1, J. Cole, 2014 Forest Hill Drive is his best record in my personal opinion. If you guys agree with me, if you guys disagree with me, let me know in the comment section what you guys think. New viewers, please hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it, because I want you guys to be involved in our conversations that we have every week under my videos. I love talking to you guys. Thank you once again for watching this. Follow me on my on every social media platform. I should have something like right over here somewhere saying what it is. Follow me on those so I give you guys some updates, especially on my podcast. And if you guys watch like wrestling or watch sports, or if you guys watch anime or anything related to superheroes, I do have some podcasts for that as well. Those will be in the description at the bottom. Go ahead and go to those YouTube channels, hit the subscribe button on it as well. Thank you guys for watching. Salute.